we're going to be talking about Sefirat HaOmer. We're in Tfus Yashan Dav Tzadi Zayin Amud Aleph, going on to Dav Tzadi Zayin Amud Bet, in Tfus Chadash, Kuf Samech Bet, on page Nun Zayin, where it starts Rabbi Abba. It talks about Sefirat HaOmer. So we're going to see what this is. The counting of the Omer. Rabbi Abba and Rabbi Chia hayu holchim baderech. So these two sages, Rabbi Abba and Rabbi Chia, were going on the path. It's a nice story from the Zohar. Amar Rabbi Chia katuv. Rabbi Chia opens up. He says the pasuk. It says the pasuk. Usfartem lachem v'choad Shabbat me'om v'yachem et Omer tnufa. You should count from after the Shabbat, which we know is Pesach, bringing the Omer hatnufa, the offering of the Omer. Ma perusho. So what does this pasuk mean? So that's Rabbi Chia's question. Amar le. So Rabbi Abba answers Rabbi Chia. Kvar lemidu hachaverim. We already said what this was. Aval boreh. But come and see. We're gonna see it again. Israel kshayu b'Mitzrayim, Bnei Israel, the Israelites, when they were in Egypt, hayu b'reshut echer. They were in a different reshut. They were in a different territory. You can say a different space that wasn't theirs. I was going
to say like a different sphere of influence, like under a different sphere of influence.
Sphere of influence is a good term. Sphere of influence,
like a different paradigm.
No, that works really well because, like what he's about to say. So yes, they were in a different sphere of influence. And in that sphere of influence, they were being latched onto by impurity. Like a woman who's in her time of tum'ah, in her time of impurity. But the thing is,
we're gonna add some modern day commentary here, and just so that we don't get canceled. So basically, like this is a metaphor for a period of time that builds desire, right between the creator and the vessel, or the light and the vessel is a time that builds desire. So there's a time to connect in a certain way, and then there's a time to connect in another way. And so there's these moments, right? And so they could be maybe metaphorically mapped to a period of time when, well, I'm not going to go there. But let's just continue.
Let's continue. Let's keep going.
Let's continue on.
So the basic understanding is that they were in a different sphere of influence. They were latched onto by impurity, so a sort of force of impurity. But what happened? After they were circumcised, right? They received the holy part, as in they were be able to become the nation that they were supposed to be, Shenikra Brit. And so this circumcision is called a Brit. It's called a covenant. So sort of like a promise between God and the Israelites. Shuso the Malchut. And the Brit is the secret of the Malchut. Once they were be able to grab onto the Malchut, the Shekhinah, you can say the female aspect of God that is sort of in this world, and protecting them in this world. Once they grabbed onto her, all the impurity left from them. Like this metaphor that we're talking about after the impurity, after the time period of impurity. And so in that same case, so we're talking about the metaphor that we're using is a woman who's on her period. After her period, she counts a certain amount of time until the blood of impurity becomes pure again. So how many days do you count? Halachically, exactly. According to Din.
This is not a physical thing, not a medical thing, but it's related. But yes, but halachically, right? You wait 7 days. Yeah.
So halachically, you wait 7 days until the verse says that she would become pure, into a pure state. So we're using that metaphor to compare it to the Israelites. They would have to count 7, something of 7 days. So we're going to see how he takes it from there. Avkan, so to here, Kevan Shivau Bechelek HaKadosh Bebrit, because they got into this a different sphere of influence. So this holier sphere of influence through the Brit, the impurity left. So through this circumcision, this covenant between them and God, the impurity left from them. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Creator said, Mikan ula'ala, from now and so forth, cheshbon letahara.
That's it.
Cheshbon letahara.
Cheshbon.
So it'll be a counting of purity. You have to count the time to be pure, which we know is 7.
Right. So it's kind of an amazing thing where you have like this mathematical formula, whether it's in days or weeks or cycles, but you have basically this cycle of 7, and there's obviously lots of other meanings to 7 and why it's 7. But if you go through this point where you're in a state of negativity, a person's in a state of negativity, of selfishness, going through a cycle of 7, we don't know whether it's 7 days or 7 weeks or 7 cycles. We don't know, but through
something about the 7 exactly.
These seven moments that correspond to the days of the week. Going through that is the amount of like mathematical, like process time, because the physical time might be different, but the process goes through these 7 points of the process that goes from a state of impurity to purity, or selfishness to selflessness. But there's basically like this time, maybe practically speaking, and I don't know what you think, but maybe practically speaking, it's like a time you're working on yourself. You know, if you're in a state of major negativity and selfishness, well, you got to work on yourself some amount of time, right? And so
what is that time exactly?
So what's that time, and what does it correspond to? And so basically, it's 7 levels, and it can, as we're going to see, it can correspond to 7 days, it can correspond to 7 weeks, maybe in some ways it corresponds to 7 years. And so we'll see how that plays out. But it's 7. It's a separation. There's a moment of selfishness, then a separation of working on oneself through 7 periods, and then purity or selflessness happens.
Right.
So that's the flow.
That's a good summary. I like that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So now I'll jump in. We're in Kuf Samach Gimel. Usfartem lachem hu bidiyuk. When it's saying you're counting them in the Torah, counting them.
Counting for you.
Counting specifically for
so
you.
Says,
Who? What's for you? Normally, it would refer to when you're counting for yourself. Afkan lachem, pirusho la'atzmechem. Actually, here as well, you're actually counting for yourself. This idea of counting puts you in a water, supernal holy water. Dainu ba'arat bina. It's the light of bina. The counting for yourself exposes you to a light of bina, a very elevated light, a light of blessings, and basically a location where all our happiness kind of comes from. That period of counting like awakens that light for us. Sefirat HaOmer, on the basis of counting these days. Which is 49 days later, which is 7 times 7. Yavo yitchabru b'melech, and you can connect to the king, ze'anpinu v'ikablu Torato, and receive the teachings of the king. So just that was just sort of, what are we counting for? What are we waiting for? It's just kind of building on this concept. We're working on ourselves. We're counting for ourselves to reach a state of purity, to be in the state where we can receive directly from the king. Right.
So he doesn't mention it here, but it seems like he's hinting to it. So we mentioned bina by Sefirat HaOmer. So why is it bina and Sefirat HaOmer? We know that there's 50 days or 50 anything is representing or connects to the level of bina, the Sefira of bina. And so the 50 that we count on Sefirat HaOmer, the 49 days, and then the 50th, which is Shavuot, the time where we celebrate the Torah and receiving the Torah, that's what we're talking about. It's that whole period of purifying ourselves in these supernal waters of bina. Right. Okay. Should we keep going? Let's keep going.
Yeah.
Okay, Shoel. So now he has a question. Sham b'isha nida katuv. So in that verse in the Torah, when it talks about a woman on her period and halachas pertaining to that, it says v'safra shivat yamim. She should count 7 days. Kan sheva Shabbatot. But here, when we're talking about Sefirat HaOmer, it says 7 weeks. So if we're talking about both ideas, where it's both from going from impurity to purity, why does one need 7 days and one needs 7 weeks? It's a good question. Why do we need 7 weeks? And he answers, it's to be merited, to be purified by these supernal waters in the river that is going back and forth, which is bina, the light or the energy that comes from the Sefirah of bina. It's called, as the Zohar says, it's called mayim chayim, the water of life. So why do we need 7 weeks? Because these, when you have 7 weeks, you count 7 weeks, it's 49 days, and then the 50th is 50, which is bina, which is washing ourselves in these supernal waters, in these mayim chayim, the waters of life. And this river, this river, the Zohar says, comes 7 weeks out of this river, which connect to the 7 sfirot, the 7 attributes, you could say, or the 7, I don't know how to really explain them, how to put a label on them for such a holy idea, but Chagat Nehim, he says, from Chesed, Burat, Tiferet, Netzach, Od, Yesod, Malchut, there's 7 of them, and these 7 correspond to the 7 weeks. Shebachol echad mehen, Sheva Sfirot, Chagat Nehim, Shen Mem Tet Sfirot. Each of the 7 has their own 7. So if you count 7 times 7, we can do easy math. 7 times 7 is 49, which is the sod of 49 gates to Bina. Valken Sheva Shabbatot Vaday. Tzrichim Lispor. That's why we have to count 7 weeks. That's his answer. Kedei lezakot ba, so that we can be merited to these supernal waters that come from this river. Tzrichim Lispor b'zeran pin b'chag Shavuot u'lekabel Torah, so that in the end, when we get to Shavuot, on the 50th day, which we're celebrating the receiving of the Torah on Har Sinai, and basically meeting the king, which is Zeran Pin. Just like after 7 days of counting, a woman after her period, halachically, she can have relations with her husband after she becomes impure, after she becomes pure again, after she becomes pure. So we're also counting so that we can become one with the king, right? We meet the king and get the Torah, and it's a whole process, but we have to go through that process in order to be there.
Hopefully we'll tag the right Zohar to this, and so as people are studying, if they happen to come on a section of the Zohar in Sefaria, let's say, that we've tagged, so they'll be able to have some explanation or benefit from our chavruta or whatever, and then I guess over time we'll have recorded all of the sections of the Zohar, B'linara, and so whenever someone's studying something randomly, they'll be able to find a study on it. Okay, so or help facilitate that with others. So okay, so Kuf Samech Hey Kakatu who beredet atal ala machane laila, talking about the dew that's descending on the camp at night, like the morning dew, so that type of water. Ala machane katuv velo katuv. So lo katuv beredet atal laila. So you would think that it would just say, well, the dew falls at night, but it didn't. The Torah doesn't say that. Ella ala machane. It says the dew fell on the camp. So what's this language that the dew fell on the camp? Tal, this dew, is a metaphor for the sustenance from the Creator, the blessings in your life, miracles in your life, life force. This life force descends from this energy field called the Chokhmah, called supernal wisdom, or Chokhmah, sphere of Chokhmah, al elu mem tetayamim, on these 49 days. So you're having this like flow of light in these 49 days of the Omer. You're having a flow of light down from the sphere of Chokhmah, where the light is flowing from this Sphira location called Chokhmah, which is like basically the highest level Sphira, to the camp, to the Machaneh, which is also code word for the next Sphira in the order of the Sphira called Bina.
So I'm not sure if it's I'm not sure if it's talking about Bina or it's talking about the 49 days themselves. Like each day of the 49, so it says Hanikraim, so it's plural.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know if we're, I just want to make sure we're saying that.
It says,
okay, yeah. That's my mistake. Okay.
The Habina, and this is how it works. This goes like this. It goes back
you got to have the back and forth.
Yeah, you got to be like that. Well, is it this? Is that? Okay. The Sefirat of Bina is bound with the king, Shehu Zer Anpin. That's the next Sefirat down in the order of the Sefirot. Umatai Yered Tal Hazeh. When did this dew come? Who shekarvu Yisrael Har Sinai b'Shavuot? When did the dew come and this flow of energy from Chokhmah to Bina and through to Zer Anpin, the connection to Zer Anpin? When did that happen? In Shavuot. Az Yered Talahu b'Shlimut b'Taheret Israel. That's when this dew, which is sustenance, came to purify the Israelites. V'nifsaka hazu amamehem, and it canceled, it stopped the impurity from them. Dainu zomat hanachash she'itil b'chava b'chet shel etadat, when basically the filth, it stops the filth that came from the original sin with the snake. V'nitchabru b'melech v'knesset Israel v'kiblu ha'torah, and by having that sustenance connect to the Israelites, they're able to receive the Torah. So you can see that they're only able to receive the Torah through this flow of light. That's what allowed them to receive the Torah. It's not right. To receive the Torah and then they get the light. It's actually the light provided the ability to receive the Torah. So you got to remember that as you study Torah, we are only able to study this Torah because the availability of the light exists, and then we can connect. Not that we're somehow creating some reality. God forbid. וכבר עמידנו ובזמננו ודאי כל הנחלים הולכים אל הים לדהר לרחוץ. All of the soldiers,
the rivers, nachalim.
All the rivers would come to the sea, and they would wash themselves and clean themselves. The rivers would clean themselves. Dainu kli shefa sfirot shel Zer Anpin. The vessels, the channels of this sustenance from the Sefirot to Zer Anpin, these channels of going, of flowing the light down to the physical world, that's called an ocean. That's called the sea.
Right.
And that happens when that light flows down and connects to the physical world, which is called ocean. That's when you have the equal sort of face-to-face with the more supernal Sefirot called Zer Anpin. V'akol nikashru v'nitchabru v'melech hakadosh shehu Zer Anpin shehu kava emsai. This central column of having you can call it balance, you can call it perfect amount of yes and no, but the central column is the flowing of the light from Chokhmah, Bina, Zer Anpin to Malchut, which metaphorically is like all of the rivers coming to combine into the ocean.
Right.
Which is what Shavuot is about.
Amazing. It's a beautiful piece.
Imagery. Yeah.
Does it keep going? I think
we got one. When we do
one more.
Yeah, one more.
Let's do one more. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then it says, come and see. Any person who didn't count this counting of Sefirat HaOmer, Elu Sheva Shabbatot Timot, these simple or pure 7 weeks, to be merited this purity. A person who doesn't do this counting, he's not called pure. He's not pure at all. And he's not worth, he has no value in having a part in the Torah. And that's wow. Okay, so it's important, as we see, according to the Zohar, it's important to count Sefirat HaOmer. And whoever gets, so right? So we say whoever counts these become tahor. They're called pure. If you come to Shavuot tahor, there's also magia tahor leoto yom Shavuot. If you come tahor, if you come pure, like you're coming to Shavuot, you come to the 50th day that you're counting, and you're pure. And he didn't count, he didn't lose his count. When he gets to Shavuot, he has to study Torah and to connect to it, and to guard this supernal purity that reaches him that night, and he's purified. So this is something amazing. So the Sefirat HaOmer it's a process, it's a whole process for one night. It's a whole process for 49 days. We're counting. We're making sure we don't lose the count. We want to purify ourselves to the like a highest level. And when we get to Shavuot, we have to be like osek b'Torah. You have to be like totally connected to the Torah and studying Torah on the night of Shavuot in order to be pure and to have the Torah. Such amazing piece.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm just going to read these words again because I think it's kind of the climax of this whole section here. So it says, "Ve'eno b'klal tahor, ve'eno shaveh sheyeh lo chelek b'Torah," meaning if you didn't do the count. Now I know we're counting at a physical level, and we're just going to get 1, 2, 3, 4 till 49, and you know the religiosity of it, the halacha of it is you have to say
Right.
bracha, and if you forget one, then you don't say the bracha. But you know you got to do this count. But on the deeper level, what's going on internally is you're really focusing on this cycle of making yourself more selfless, less selfish, more pure, and you know that you need to do it in these 7 cycles because there's some metaphysical property of these 7 cycles that's real, and you're stepping through for one goal alone, which is just to get yourself pure enough to actually receive the teachings of the Torah, which is I never really had that in mind as presently. You know, I knew we were stepping forward from Pesach to Shavuot, and I knew each day, let's say we knew some sort of work you're supposed to do on yourself, and there's some really, you know, nice little helpful guides out there, you know, work on chesed of chesed, so do a nice little love action to your friend, and all those things are nice, and working on your midot and all those things are nice. But the deeper consciousness the Zohar is sharing with us is something way
profound.
And not to scare anyone, but like you want to connect to spirituality.
You want to do it.
Connect to this. Yeah. You need to do it. You don't want to miss a day. You really want to get yourself prepared to receive that connection to the Creator, because if you don't prepare yourself, the Zohar seems to be suggesting that it's just not going to happen. So it's pretty amazing what we're coming up to Pesach, and then you're in. You're in the count.
You're in the count.
You're in the count.
process.
So get ready.